Hello. Welcome back to the political spectrum. I'm your host,
I could see your car.
JJ Michaels.
I couldn't anymore.
Yes.
I could see the trail that you left.
Well, we got a whole lot to talk about today. In case you didn't notice, a lot of things have been happening. Everybody's resigning. Everybody's quitting. Everybody's quitting. It's a whole bunch of quitters.
On an ordinary day, I wouldn't ever say, I wish you hadn't gone away.
Yeah. Well, there's nothing ordinary about these days. Nothing ordinary about these days. I can tell you that. That's music from the Light Aluminum, by the way. So yeah, everybody's quitting. Everyone's quitting. They're all out. The president's out. Joe Biden's out. He's not resigning, but he's no longer running for re-election. He's stepped down, as I'm sure you know. Let's see. Director Cheadle. She's out. Director of the Secret Service. She resigned this morning. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about a few things. And then we're going to talk about Vice President Kamala Harris, who is taking over the top of the ticket for the Democrats. We'll talk about that a little bit. And we're just going to kind of go through it. We're going to wrap. That's what we're going to do. All right. So, I'm here in Central Texas, as always, in the Political Spectrum Studios. We're getting rain again. It's like our third or fourth consecutive day of rain. The grass is growing. The trees are green. It's not all that hot. It's muggy, but it's not all that hot. It's a pretty good day. There's a lot to be grateful for, including delicious cup of coffee that I am drinking out of my dad mug, which, Father's Day, that's the best part about having kids. You get all kinds of dad paraphernalia, just like you always wanted. Everybody always wanted it. Now you get it. Dad mugs, dad hats, all kinds of things. Anyway, so I'm drinking an Americano, a hot one this time, out of my dad mug. Let's see, what else is new in the Michaels family? For my day job, believe it or not, I have a day job. I know it's hard for you to believe for the fans of the Political Spectrum podcast, but this doesn't quite pay the bills. We got a few kids, we got a mortgage, and we have no endorsements or sponsorships here, although we're not opposed to the concept. We will sell out. We're willing to. We're willing to. And if you want me to sell out, all you got to do is email jjmichaelsshow@gmail.com. Make an offer. I'll take it. But until that happens, I got to work during the day. And we just had a baby here. So yesterday, Monday, was my first day back in the virtual office for my day job. That's the reason why I didn't get a show out yesterday. So I meant to, but first day back after 3 weeks of parental leave, there was just a lot to catch up on. I thought I'd be able to do it. I was not able to, but here we are, Tuesday, not that bad. It's our fourth episode. Let's start with Joe Biden. Okay, so President Biden, he stepped down in the weirdest way, I think. Now, I don't think it's weird, his timing. Some people say that. I don't think that's weird at all, actually. I think that the debate was a disaster, and it became clear to the whole world that he couldn't hang. And obviously, regardless of what you think of Donald Trump, whether he is Hitler or not, although we established in episode 3, not Hitler, Hitler's Hitler, Trump not Hitler. But even if you think he's a bad guy, bringing the country in the wrong direction, if you don't want to lose to that guy, right? But even if you think he's a good guy, you still want to win. You want your party in power. You have your sets of beliefs. Anyway, I think it became pretty clear after the debate that Biden couldn't win. And I also think that they needed to get close enough to the Democrat convention in August that they could minimize the media frenzy window, um, minimize the amount of time that the coverage focuses on who's next, so that they could get a really clean Passover, as they have done, handoff, as they have done to Kamala successfully. And also, they couldn't announce ahead of the Republican convention because you don't want the Republicans to be able to focus on their new opponent. You want them to have to do exactly what they did have to do, which is sort of keep it vague. They talked a little bit about Biden, but they had to talk about the administration, quote unquote, and the Democrat Party as a whole. And they couldn't directly attack, in this case, Kamala, right? Who's almost definitely going to be replacing Joe Biden at the top of the ticket. Otherwise, they would have spent 4 days just tearing down the new candidate, with a whole media focus on that. So the announcement had to be after the RNC. It was, and it had to be before the Democrat convention. So here we are. Happened on Monday. And it's the right decision. And they made the right decision. If you've been listening to the podcast, as I know you have, they made the right decision by endorsing Kamala, the smart political decision. Now, here's an interesting thing. Look this up. So there's a story today. I'll look it up for you because I don't remember where I saw it. Let's see. FEC chairman. I saw, let me tell you what I'm looking up. I saw a story today. Let me find it. The FEC chairman predicts legal challenges with Harris accessing the Biden-Harris war chest, meaning the version of this story that I'm seeing is on the New York Post. FEC chair predicts legal challenges if Kamala Harris tries to access Biden's war chest. Quote, "It's really complicated." By Victor Nava, probably. Nice name, Victor. Big fan. This is interesting because we had talked about how Biden basically had to, or the Democrats really had to go with Kamala so that they could access the $240 million of campaign funds that already exist for the Biden-Harris ticket. Now, here's some quotes from the head of the FEC, Sean Cooksey, who is saying, I'll read his quote. He says, "I think it's really complicated," is the short answer. I mean, we take a step back to consider the situation. This is really unprecedented in terms of modern political history and certainly in terms of campaign finance law. He continues, "We have a presidential nominee or a presumptive nominee dropping out just weeks before the party convention," end quote. I don't know. Do you guys really think that that anyone would come after them for trying to access these funds? I mean, everybody's been saying that the campaign funds are accessible by anybody on the ticket. Kind of makes logical, intuitive sense. But then you have the Federal Elections Commission chair saying, actually, no, this is complicated because with current campaign finance law, not so easy. Now, interestingly, according to Victor Nava's article, this Mr. Cooksey is a Trump appointee. Now, I don't know how that works with the Federal Election Commission, if they have a term that they serve or whatever. But anyway, point is he might be biased in saying that. And he's not definitively saying that they can't access it. He's just saying it's complicated. Something makes me think for $240 million, you can figure out complicated. Don't you think? I think I could. If that was my money. Anyway, yeah, Kamala, that was, you got to do that. Otherwise, you have a serious civil war on your hands. The word today is that Kamala has already secured enough delegates behind the scene that she is a lock to get the nomination, regardless of if there are folks within the party that don't think she's the right pick. And that's because Biden endorsed her. So there are pledged delegates to Biden, and it's not required that they support whoever Biden supports. but it's kind of the way it's done, supposedly. I don't know. That's what I read. So that had to happen. It had to happen. Now, so what's weird about it isn't the timing. That's not what's weird about it. What's weird about it is the way the announcement was made, which was like a basically a screenshot, I think, or like a photo of a fax or something posted on X, formerly known as Twitter, from the president's account. That's weird. No like announcement, no press conference. Wouldn't you think that if the sitting president is going to tell the nation, hey, I'm not running for re-election and here's why, that he would call a press conference or actually make a official statement from the Oval Office? It seems kind of weird to me. And it indicates to me that the president is very unwell. Now, I know he has COVID, although, by the way, they didn't cite COVID as a reason for stepping down. He's got COVID, supposedly. No one's seen him. I don't know. I think the reality is he's just declining very rapidly. And with something as important as passing the nomination or, the presumptive nomination off to his successor, they didn't want an 81-year-old man who has really struggled with public speaking in the last year and particularly the last few months, last several years, to have any opportunity to fumble that handoff. Still, it's weird though, right? I don't know. It really does sort of raise the who is running the country type questions. Speaking of who's running the country, the Trump campaign wasted no time, and we already know what their tactic is on Kamala. Their tactic is Kamala's been running the country this entire time. Now, that's interesting, right? I wish I had predicted that, but I didn't. And it makes total sense now, though, because they've been, focused on Biden's record over the last 4 years. They've been focused on inflation. They've been focused on the border issues and the surge of migrants coming over the border undocumented, right? An issue that both sides, left and right, see is out of control. Now, obviously, they're all blaming each other. Biden blames Congress. Congress blames Biden. Trump blames Biden. Kamala was supposed to be in charge of this, by the way. So, but not just that. So inflation, all these things. So the current Trump attack ad that I saw, search for it. It's the only one out. Search for it. If you want to look at it yourself, just search like Trump campaign attack ad, Kamala Harris. You'll find it. And what they say is that it begins with some clips with Kamala saying that Joe Biden is healthy and fine. By the way, you could pull clips like that from virtually any Democrat leader. Clips saying he is as vibrant and sharp as he's ever been. And then it says she lied. That's true. She did lie. They all lied. That is true. And then it says, so who really was running the country? And their conclusion is Kamala. Vice President Harris was running the show. It's an interesting angle. So their angle is everything Biden's been doing for the last 3 years was really Kamala behind the scenes. It's interesting because are people going to buy this? I mean, if it were true, it would be a really compelling argument. It's totally not true. I mean, I don't really know, but I don't think it's true. It's totally implausible because everything that we're all reading, I'm sure you're reading the same thing, says that Biden barely even talks to Kamala, not to mention that she's running the show behind the scenes. But the Biden administration and the media that has been covering for his mental decline and the Democrat Party who's been going along with it, they open themselves up to this because honestly, who is in charge? We don't really know it's clearly not been Biden. That is for sure. That person that we saw on the stage in the debates, the person that we saw at the NATO summit, the person that now the leaks are coming out from all over his own party saying he has been an empty suit for years. That's coming from his own party. Well, he's obviously not been running the show, so who has? I mean, look, let's be real, guys. It hasn't been Kamala, but we don't really know who's been in charge. And even the resignation came in some weird piece of paper screenshot on a Twitter tweet. That opens you up to your opposition campaign saying things like Kamala's been running this show. And now what's interesting is that the Democrats would claim that they are happy with that because they're claiming that they're happy with the record. Are they really, though? Or I guess they have to say that. They have to stand on their record. But are they really? Because the polling shows that Americans are not happy with the job that the Biden administration is doing. In fact, I think it's like 38%. Something like this. Last poll, let's just be nice and say 40%. Think that they're doing a good job. And on the economy, it's even lower. So regardless of what they say, I think they prefer Vice President Harris to have a clean slate. But they open themselves up to it because who has been in charge? And honestly, who has been in charge? I'm curious what you guys think. Comment on wherever you're watching this. If you want to comment or email me. It's been fun hearing from some of you guys. I got comments from a listener in Switzerland, American expatriate, American living in Switzerland, listening to the show. He said this made him feel close to home and realize how far from home he was. That's a pretty nice thing to say, I think. Anyway, yeah. So let me know what you think. jjmichaelsshow@gmail.com. Who's been in charge? Who is in charge? Does it even matter? We know it's not Kamala. Anyway, that's what the Trump campaign is going to say, evidently. It's an interesting tactic. Let's see how well it works. So there is one other thing that needs to be discussed on this particular point, which is a lot of people are saying, not without justification, if Biden is incapable of running for re-election, is he capable of serving out the remaining, July? They're saying 4 months, but it's not actually 4 months. He'd be president until January. So they're not 4 months. 5 months. 6 months of his term. It's a reasonable question. I don't think that the fact that he's running for re-election, I don't think the fact that he's not running for re-election by default is some admission that he can't serve. That's a little silly. That's a stretch. LBJ didn't run for re-election. Eisenhower. This is not the first time this ever happened. So it doesn't necessarily mean that that he can't serve. However, in this case, the reason why he's not running for re-election is because of his diminished capacity, regardless of whether or not he admits that. We all know that's the case. So in this case, I think it's, I don't know, it's different. So I agree and disagree with that question. I agree in the sense that he's saying we can see that he's not fit to serve another 4 years. So what indication do we have that he's fit to run the country for the next 6 months? On the other hand, the very fact that he's not seeking re-election, that itself does not disqualify him. So I don't know. It's kind of a half truth. It's a half reasonable question. The thing is, the way it's being presented by Speaker Johnson and others, they're just saying if he's unfit to run for re-election, he's unfit to serve. That's oversimplifying it a little bit, I think. All right, I'm going to take a sip of my coffee here, and we're going to shift gears. Okay. I want to talk about the Secret Service thing. Kimberly Cheadle, Director Cheadle, head of the Secret Service, resigns. And, she kind of ruined one of my talking points today because I was going to talk about how she should resign. So I don't know. What should we do? Should we talk about why that was the right decision? I do want to, actually, because I still want to make an observation, as we do here on the political spectrum. I want to make an observation that I haven't seen others make, and that you can only hear here. I looked for this one, and no one else is saying it. So yesterday, Director Cheadle spent all day in front of Congress answering questions about what happened in Butler, Pennsylvania, what kind of mistakes were made that allowed a evidently unskilled, evidently unaided Thomas Crooks to stash a large firearm at the site of a presidential campaign rally, retrieve that firearm, carry it to the top of a building a few hundred feet away from Donald Trump, and manage to get off, I think, 8 shots before anybody noticed. All right, that's a fair question. What is the Secret Service? The Secret Service is tasked with protecting the president, for sure. Everybody knows that. But the Secret Service also is tasked with protecting former presidents and their families. So the Secret Service, overseen by Director Cheadle, is responsible for the safety of Joe Biden and First Lady Dr. Jill Biden, not a medical doctor, but a doctor nonetheless, at all times, campaign speeches and otherwise. And they're also responsible for the protection of Donald Trump, Barack Obama, George W. Bush, and any other former presidents. They are also responsible for the protection of presidential nominees like Donald Trump. So Donald Trump falls into both categories. He's a former president and he's a major party nominee. So the Secret Service is responsible by their charter to protect Donald Trump. And it's very reasonable to ask Director Cheadle what happened. And I just think yesterday, man, if you did not watch any of this, then don't. It is a waste of your time. She wasted everybody's time. She wasted the time of hundreds and hundreds of congressmen and women. And basically, I'll just summarize it for you. Virtually every single question that was asked of Director Cheadle, she responded with either there's an ongoing investigation or we've followed a protocol on that day. So, for example, they highlighted that Crooks, the shooter, had been identified earlier that day as a suspicious person. And they asked her, well, if you knew there was a suspicious person on the premises, why did former President Trump, even take the stage to begin with? Her answer to that, not unreasonably, is there's a difference between a suspicious person and I think and a present threat or whatever they call it. That's fine in theory. And then she fell back on that we followed protocol. They followed protocol. Here's the big problem that I have with this. And I don't want to get into the details. We don't need, it's just like with some other things we've discussed on the podcast. Sometimes you don't need to get into the details because the overall question is answered before we even get to details. So could we get into, did they screw up? Yeah, we could. But Director Cheadle says they didn't screw up, that they followed protocol. But here's the problem. Who makes the protocol? The person that runs the department. And she is the person that runs the department. What kind of an excuse is that? Over and over and over again. We followed our protocol. Well, Director Cheadle, your protocol resulted in someone getting shot. So there's a problem with your protocol. Obviously. That seems like pretty clear. You can't say we followed our plan. What can I tell you? We followed our plan. Your plan didn't work. Who made the plan? You made the plan. Do you guys see what I'm saying? if this was like a Secret Service agent on the ground, right? They could say, I'm so sorry for the president and his family and the victim who died, and the others who were injured. But this was the plan, and I followed the plan. Yeah, because they didn't make the plan. But the person who makes the plan can't use the excuse of we followed the plan when the plan failed. She would be better off saying, I don't know who screwed up. This was not the plan. Right? I mean, imagine any other job in the world where the director, the person that oversees everything, tries to explain a failure by saying, hey, we followed the plan. Like, imagine if you had a financial advisor and they lost all your money and you said, what happened? And they said, well, we followed my plan. Like, yeah, I know, and I'm broke. Like, yeah, but we followed my plan. You'd fire them instantly. I would rather hear anything other than, well, this was my plan. If your plan failed, at least point the finger at somebody, or at least say, stick with the investigation part. Stick with that. We're investigating what happened. But nope. She said over and over and over and over again how they followed protocol. This was the protocol. Protocol was followed. Well, your protocol stinks, obviously, because someone got shot despite your protocol evidently being followed perfectly. Now, here's the thing. I don't believe that they did follow protocol. Somebody must have screwed up. I mean, I don't believe that our federal government has now reached a level of incompetence so great that this is actually how we intend to do things, where you have a rooftop that must have surely been part of a threat assessment, unmanned, and the only rooftop that is unmanned is also the rooftop where a shooter planted a gun and climbed up with a clear view of a presidential candidate and took 8 shots. There's no way that is the plan. There's no way. So obviously somebody screwed up. And yeah, this is not a case where you circle the wagons and protect your own. This is the case where you figure out what happened and you tell people what happened and you take responsibility. So I was going to come on today and say she's got to be fired or step down, not because the former president got shot under her watch. That's not why she needs to be fired. It's because someone got shot under her plan and her only response was, hey, we followed the plan. That's somebody who has no idea how to lead or make a plan. So, yeah, that is that. And I'm honestly pretty shocked by it. It's not because, I mean, obviously an assassination attempt in the United States of America is always shocking. We haven't seen anything like this in 40 years since the attempted assassination on Ronald Reagan. And we haven't seen a candidate assassination, I think, in even longer. Well, certainly even longer. I guess RFK. It's shocking enough, but to me, the complete lack of responsibility from a so-called leader of a very important department is just mind-blowing. And I want to keep the show positive, so I'm going to try not to get too depressed about what that says about our society. Maybe this is just a one-off. You guys have never worked for any manager like that, have you? You don't know anybody like that, do you? All right. Hey. Now I'm feeling negative. Feeling really negative. Yeah, I don't want to feel gloomy. I don't want to feel depressed. I don't want to feel bummed. I don't actually feel that way, so I want to continue to not feel that way. But yeah, I think we probably covered enough for today. Tomorrow we're going to do a TPS report, political spectrum report. We're going to open up the news. We're going to go to allsides.com, I think, again, and we're going to read headlines from the left, center, and right. And we're just going to kind of assess what we think about them. We're going to observe, because remember, we don't become consumed by the news. We're consumers of it. We can observe without being eaten alive. So I hope you're enjoying the show. We're going to see you tomorrow. I'm going to get this one out tomorrow morning. I want you to wake up bright and early and go through the day's news with us. And we're going to not do any. All right, here's my commitment to you. Tomorrow, there will be no Kamala coverage from me. There will be no Joe Biden coverage. There will be no Donald Trump coverage. There will be no assassination coverage. We're going to talk about other things that are happening in the world. Maybe we'll talk about the Olympics. Maybe we'll even talk about Gaza. I don't know. Benjamin Netanyahu is coming to speak this week. I don't remember exactly when. Maybe he's already here. We'll talk about anything other than the election tomorrow morning. I promise. Okay. Well, have a good day, everybody. Thanks for listening. I'm JJ Michaels. This is The Political Spectrum, and we'll see you soon. Bye.